This message is brought to you by the Cologuard test. Cologuard is a one-of-a-kind way to feel more in control of your colon cancer screening through a use-at-home test with none of the prep that's required of a colonoscopy. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at cologuard.com/podcast. Do not use Cologuard if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. False positive and negative results may occur. Any positive result should be followed by a colonoscopy, not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. The Cologuard test is available by prescription only.
Lemonada.
We don't always see eye to eye with the people we love. Sometimes they're right, and sometimes we're right. And figuring out who has the high ground, that can be tricky. I'm Lupita Nyong'o, and this is Mind Your Own.
There's that custom flow, mind your own. There go that feeling I know. There's that custom tone, mind your own. Make 'em and follow us home. It's the life I saw, mind your own. Mind your own. It's that cat we grow, mind your own. Mind your own.
A few years ago, my family, we took a trip to Puerto Rico. We decided to do some touring, and what better place to start than in San Juan at El Morro. You can go and walk the grounds. It's right by the ocean. The waves actually hit onto the walls of the castle. There's like little towers, and there's big, the walls are big and fat. The walls are like full roads, really, in terms of how thick they are. And so we go up there, and we're looking, and the expanse of water underneath. And I decided to hoist myself up onto the wall because I want to see it from up there. I wanted to get some pictures. And mind you, I'm afraid of heights, so I am staying on the inner side of the wall. And my mother is like, "Amundi, get off that wall." And I say, "Mommy, it's really thick. Just come see." "No, I don't want to see. Get off that wall." My mom is famously afraid of heights. "Mommy, relax. Relax. I swear to God, I'm fine." "Amundi, stop talking. Get off that wall." "Mommy, please think for a moment. I am afraid of heights too. You don't have to worry." My mother got angrier and angrier. So she's now recruiting my sisters to say, "Get her off that wall." And I'm like, "But I just want to take a pic. If we stop arguing about me getting off the wall, I will have finished what I came up here to do." I'm like laughing. I'm like, "Mommy, it's fine. I understand. You love me a lot. I get it. But I am fine. This wall is so thick." And my mother, out of nowhere, stops talking and walks off crying. And I'm like, "Oh my God, Mommy, you're crying now? Because I won't get off the wall?" And she's not speaking. I've lost the support of my sisters. They're going after my mom. And now I'm pissed because I'm like, "Why are you making this about you?" Now she's leaving. She's saying she's leaving the castle. And I'm just like, wow, Mommy, wow. Talk about melodrama. Like, it wasn't even that serious. So I get off the wall, but I'm upset. And I go and try and talk to her. She is not having it. She's not talking to me. And I never really experienced my mom that, obstinate about something, and that hurt as well. So I'm also confused because I'm like, why is this hurting you so much? I apologize, but my apology was not a good apology. It was an apology laced with, if that's what you want, right? Why does it have to be about the fear that you possess? Because I'm working with my own fear, right? And now here I am having to cater to your fear. Somehow we found some peace, and the holiday went on and it was fine. But I never really got closure to that experience. Fast forward, 2022. A very, very dear friend of mine is about to do an interview with a person who does plane stunts. It's going to be a race. They do flips and twirls and all sorts of things, and then they land. He's going to go and commentate this race. And then he says to me, oh, and I'm also going to take a ride. I'm like, is it going to be a simulated ride? No, it's going to be a real ride. I'm going to be in this plane, and it's going to do all these things. It's going to be amazing. You know what? That's great. I won't stop you from doing that, but under no circumstances do I want to see it. Don't tell me when it's happening. Just let me know that you're alive once it's done. And so I'm minding my own business, going about my own life. And then I receive a link that I faithfully just press on without thinking. And now I find myself watching this dear friend of mine in this plane doing all these daring things. And of course, now I've started watching. I can't stop because I'm invested in his safety. They take off and almost like 90 degrees, they go up into the air, and then they do all sorts of turns in the air, and before long they're dipping straight down to the ground at a speed that I can't even fathom. Then the pilot levels out right at the ground, right above the ground. If any small mistake, one of the wings is going to crash in the ground and everything's over. I think it was like 2.5 minutes of hell for me, okay? I am in inferno. My hands were cold and sweaty. My heart was beating so fast. I sent him a voice note and said,
"That was too much for me. I'm happy you're happy. That you had a great time. But that is a level of risk-taking that I cannot stomach. So please, no more for me."
And in that moment, this is a lot like what my mom was going through. Her love for me could not handle the risk I was taking. I realized that, yes, that moment is about her. She gave birth to me. She put me on this earth. And just to stand there and watch me do this dangerous thing hurt her so much. I called her and I reminded her about Puerto Rico, and I apologized profusely without the undertones. This time, it was heartfelt. I'm telling my own story, but I'm always a part of my mother's, because I'm from her. And that's just a very different relationship. Just considering having children of my own is making me understand her in a different way. More Mind Your Own after this quick break. Stay tuned.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the back-to-school season arrives, it brings the perfect moment for fresh starts, not just for students, but for everyone. This time of year invites us to rediscover our interests, embrace new challenges, and reignite our sense of curiosity. Whether you're looking to try a new hobby, dive deeper into a subject you've always been curious about, or simply find joy in learning again, now is the ideal time to reconnect with what excites you. However, finding that spark can sometimes feel
overwhelming. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. Their network of licensed therapists is here to help you explore your passions, navigate any obstacles, and rediscover the excitement of personal growth. I believe in the power of therapy for real. It's transformed my life and so many people I know. I've come to appreciate that with the right therapist, you can navigate just about anything. If you've been considering therapy, BetterHelp offers a flexible online solution that works around your schedule. The process is simple. Complete a short questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and if needed, you can change therapists at any time with no additional fees. Why not take the first step today? Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Lupita to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lupita.
This message is brought to you by the Cologuard test. The American Cancer Society recommends that if you are at average risk, you should begin screening for colon cancer at age 45, no matter your race, ethnicity, or gender. And with the Cologuard test, you can actually screen for colon cancer in the privacy of your own home. That's right, no prep, no procedure, no scheduling hassles. The Cologuard test is a non-invasive, effective, and affordable prescription use-at-home colon cancer screening test that looks for both abnormal DNA and blood in your stool. Colon cancer screening is a crucial step in early detection because many people with early-stage colon cancer have no symptoms. While a lifestyle of exercise and a healthy diet decreases the risk of colon cancer, it is a common misconception that it means you're at low or no risk. In actuality, no one is at low risk for colon cancer. Even with no family or personal history, you are still considered average risk. With most insured patients paying $0 for this easy-to-use, at-home test that requires no need to take time off work for prep or procedures, what more are you waiting for? It's time to put your health first. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at cologuard.com/podcast. Do not use Cologuard if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. False positive and negative results may occur. Any positive results should be followed by a colonoscopy, not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. The Cologuard test is available by prescription only.
Welcome back. You're listening to Mind Your Own. Mothers and daughters, we're going to keep exploring that. Today on Mind Your Own, a power struggle between two parents and their fiercely independent child takes us to 3 continents. We start in Canada with that child, Evelyn Koomson, a young Ghanaian girl who's asking questions and insisting on her own answers. I hope you're listening.
It started at the age of 5. In school, I remember during Christmas, they're like, let's write a letter to Santa Claus. And everybody would be so excited to give it back to their teachers. And I'm like, no, if there's a Santa Claus, I want to find the Santa Claus on my own. I left the school grounds because I knew my mom would pick me up and I didn't want her to stop me. It took me a while to get there. It was a far journey. I don't just make one stop, I detour. I don't know what I was looking for, but yes, at 5 o'clock, I reached the post office and they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, hey, I need to give a letter to Santa Claus. Can you give it to him? I heard he lives in the North Pole. The paper was really scratched up, but they still accepted my letter. So at 6 o'clock, got home. My mom was crying. My dad was crying. They're like, where did this girl go? And all I had to say was I had to go to Santa Claus. They're like, we called the police. We had a search. Whilst you were searching, I was searching for Santa Claus. So my parents, you do not know what you are doing here? You want to cause problems in this house? Why? And then I'll be like, what do you mean why?
Evelyn was so headstrong for such a little girl. She moved a mile a minute and changed direction constantly. In the classroom, she was almost too smart for her own good.
I was always in trouble as a kid. I don't know if it was necessary because I had strong features or already because I was a wanderer and they couldn't control me naturally or I was misunderstood. The teachers are like, we no longer want a hyper person. We no longer want someone who's going to distract other kids. They used to say she talks too much. And then they called my parents and said how I am misbehaving. And they felt embarrassed that why am I like this? Why am I so rebellious?
The more they tried to get through to Evelyn, the more she resisted. There was only one person in that house who could actually persuade her to slow down. Her brother, Fred.
I remember I would go on his desk and all I would see is numbers and words. And so me as a sister, it would always be academic talks. It would always be like, you have to focus in school.
And he could get her to focus. When he explained things, they just clicked.
He was more like a teacher to me. And I felt like every time I spoke to him, it was like a teacher talking to a student. In a sense, he was a light to my life.
But when Evelyn was just 9 years old, she lost her big brother in a car accident.
My brother passed away on October 10th, 1999, and it changed the entire family's history. I think throughout this whole time, the family was mourning because it was sudden and he was young. He passed away in a way where it was not spoken about much. And nobody really spoke to us or said, oh, are you okay? Or how are you doing? It was more so like, yeah, we understand there's a passing of a relative, but then nothing else with us. I stopped paying attention in class. I wanted to disconnect with the classroom because my brother was the one who made me love learning, but he was gone. So if I'm not interested in this, why am I still in the environment? And I think that's when my parents are like, we're moving.
The family moved to a quieter part of Canada in the hopes that it would help Evelyn settle down. But in this new town, Evelyn was bored out of her mind. So she started wandering about again. One day, Evelyn was out on her bike and hit a car. It wasn't a serious accident.
In my head, I'm like, okay, great. I get away with hitting into someone's car and I don't have to pay for the damages, is what I was thinking.
But Evelyn's mom took it as a sign that she needed to get strict.
My mom's like, you should have never, ever allowed that to pass. I just didn't want to hear the repercussions of what I've done. And my mom is someone that will, she will make a scene. There was a lot of tension between me and my mom when I was younger. I didn't really get along with her. There was a lot of fights where I'll argue with her and, misunderstanding. I just remember it just being I wasn't connecting with her.
When the school year ended, Evelyn's mom took her to Ghana to see her grandparents. She wasn't particularly excited about traveling with her mom, but she soon adjusted.
I got introduced to new friends. We would explore, go play games, video games, and it still felt like we were in Canada, but the difference was we had to, let's say, build our own community.
But as the summer wrapped up, a bombshell was dropped on Evelyn. Her mom would be going back to Canada alone. Evelyn would be staying in Ghana.
I was upset because I needed some sort of time to at least say goodbye to my friends.
Evelyn stayed in Ghana for a few years. She made friends and found her way, but never felt at home. And her mom's betrayal lingered. So, when that same mother summoned her back to Canada, the now teenage Evelyn wasn't interested in being the obedient and studious girl that her mom expected she had become. She had other plans.
When it hits for second break lunch, everyone was coming to our parties and jams. It just started from word of mouth, letting people know that when it's lunch period, it's time to come party, come have fun. We have the best sound system. Through that, we started to create our own vibe during lunch period.
But kids can't keep a secret, right? And teachers notice when the loudest voice in the room is missing.
My parents got concerned because they're like, how is she missing class? We are getting calls. So I'm like, okay, so I have to find a different way so that my parents don't get information on these parties. I call the school answering machine. Hello, good afternoon, I bless you. My name is Obaya, and my daughter is Evelyn Koomson. She will not be coming to class tomorrow due to personal reasons. Please, don't call back. We are going to be calling you when we should be coming back to class. Please, have a blessed day. God bless you. Bye. My friend's like, you're a fraud, fam. How do you mimic your mother and everything? And I told her, I'm like, these are the accents we keep inside where we don't bring them out. I'm a true African.
So, of course, when your kid is organizing house parties during the lunch hour, impersonating your voice, and is altogether ungovernable, the only course of action for good Ghanaian parents, the most rational choice, is to send your child to Sweden for Christmas.
My auntie told me that I was going to Sweden for Christmas. I was super, super excited in the sense where I had never been to Sweden, but I've heard so much about Sweden.
Okay, Evan did have an aunt in Sweden who called often to chat.
On Christmas Day, the next day, my dad's like, oh, okay, so we're going to go see our family in Sweden. Say bye to your aunties. I'm like, why would I say bye to them? I'm coming to see them back again. Why would I do that? During this Christmas trip, my mom wasn't around. She was in Ghana. I had to go to Sweden with my dad. It was a little suspicious for me because wouldn't it be my mom taking me to her sister? But in my mind, I'm like, this is the great opportunity to build a bond with my dad.
The two went to Amsterdam. When they touched down, her dad said, hey, we've got an 8-hour layover to Sweden. Let's stretch our legs a bit.
I remember pushing the cart with my hand luggage and just like wondering, why are we walking aimlessly and not going towards our flight?
We'll be back in a quick second. Stay tuned. Aging is a natural process, one we should embrace. But one part of aging that can sometimes get overlooked are the symptoms related to changing hormones, especially as you get closer to perimenopause and menopause. And that's why I want to tell you about Happy Mammoth, a supplement company designed just for women. Their hero product is called Hormone Harmony, a supplement that contains adaptogens and herbal ingredients. It is calibrated especially for women to help navigate symptoms like poor sleep, hot flashes, and more. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to using only science-backed ingredients that truly work. Women can't stop talking about it. There's a bottle sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit they hear from their customers? Feeling like myself again. That's what women mention over and over in their reviews. And there are over 17,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. For a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code MindYourOwn at checkout. As someone who's always on the go, I can't only prioritize style. Look, they can be the cutest pair of shoes in all the world. If they're not comfortable, I'm not gonna wear them. Especially with the seasons changing, having breathable quality clothes we know we feel good in is so important. That's why I'm about Quince. I ordered the silk slip dress in forest green. Wow, it's beautiful and versatile. Truly the best of all worlds when it comes to that elevated everyday fashion. Quince is all about bringing luxury within reach and offering high-quality essentials at prices that make sense. The silk slip dress, for example, is made from 100% mulberry silk, and it feels divine against the skin. Plus, Quince's commitment to sustainable and ethical practices means I can feel good about what I'm wearing. They work directly with manufacturers, cutting out the middleman and passing on those savings to all of us. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/mindyourown for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/mindyourown to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/mindyourown. You're listening to Mind Your Own. Let's get back into it.
So we would walk around and come back every so often towards the gate. That's at Accra. The flight was going to Ghana. I remember asking my dad, I'm like, why do we keep coming back to this gate when we're trying to go into Sweden? And then he explained to me that maybe Sweden's flight may be delayed, so the best option is to keep these options open.
And when it came time to get on the plane to Stockholm,
he made us miss the flight to Sweden.
instead,
He finally decided that we should get into the line that's going towards Ghana. I think at that very moment, I felt like so many emotions running through my mind all at once, saying that everything I had was just crumbling down. I would maybe not see my friends, and they will have so much fun without me. I felt like maybe I wouldn't be cool again. I was talking to myself a lot, saying, why wasn't I smart enough to see this coming?
she was stunned, to say the least. But what could she do? She was still just a teenager traveling with her father. She was fuming at him for tricking her, and so disappointed that her auntie had gone along with the Sweden story. But deep down, she knew that this plan, had her mother's fingerprints all over it.
I remember seeing the aircraft in which we were landing in and looking out the windows and saying, wow, we're back to Ghana. When we got off the plane, the first thing I felt was the hot air in Ghana. When you walk through the airport, it says, welcome, Akua. And I looked at that, I'm like, wow, this is the welcome I get. My uncle came to pick us up, and whilst we were driving to the house, I was listening to the old school songs. And I remember listening to the music like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is not how I want to be treated. Like, this is not how I want to be back. And then when we arrived, I remember they opened the gates to the house. And then I saw my cousins who were supposed to be sleeping in their pajamas. And they come out like, oh, you're back. Like, it was like, what are you doing here? And they were excited, but I wasn't excited to see them. I was talking to myself a lot, saying, so I'm here. I'm back here again. How am I going to get out of this situation?
She moped around the house, refusing to engage with her cousins. When her mom finally showed up, she gave her the evil eye. And at dinner time, she declared a hunger strike.
And I remember one of my uncles were like, why don't you tell your dad that you don't want to be here? Don't tell your mom, because we know your mom doesn't feel that way about you, but tell your dad your heart. At first, I was a bit hesitant, but then I knew I had to do something at that very moment to convince my dad to bring me back. In my mind, I'm like, okay, my dad now sees that I'm not eating, I'm not doing anything. So I feel like there's a soft part of him that will hear me out. Because I've been in scenarios like that before where I apologize to my dad and my dad will forgive me.
Evelyn's mom was indeed unbothered. But her dad did seem concerned about his daughter.
I do remember he would be like, Evelyn, do you mind coming to eat? Because if you don't eat, you're going to get sick. At that very time, he was not happy. You could tell he felt bad.
Evelyn decided she had nothing to lose. 2 weeks after she arrived in Ghana, On a day that her mom went out to run some errands, she came out of her bedroom, found her father, and made her case.
When my mom was out, then I went to my dad and said, Dad, look at this. I don't want to be here. I have accepted my mistakes. If you could help me to go back, I will not disappoint you. So when I told him, he's like, you know what? I will listen. Tomorrow, we're going to go to the KLM and I'm going to book you a one-way flight back to Canada. I was blown away. He's like, make sure that nobody knows about this decision. Make sure that your mom does not hear about this, and that we would go to KLM in the morning and I would go the same exact day. So that night, I remember packing my stuff and then getting ready for the next day. My dad's like, oh, your mom's gonna go out, so, be on standby. The morning comes and then my mom leaves and then it's me and my dad, and he's like, okay, let's get going. So I showered, got ready. I was excited. He's like, let's take your bags. We took our car and my dad is like, okay, I have to get you stuff to bring back to your auntie who's staying at our place in Canada. So he's like, let's just go to the market. It's called Makola. Makola is like one of the biggest markets in Ghana. And so we went there and got dry fish. It was stuff that when you're going back to Canada, you bring. So I knew in my head, I'm like, yes, I get to go back. So we got those stuff and then we went to book a one-way flight to Canada. And my dad paid almost $2,000 just for this flight back. When we did that, I was excited. I'm like, okay, I get to go home. I get to go see my friends. I get to be back. So we get to the airport. Just as I was about to take out my luggage from the car, my mom appears. And my mom is like, hey, how can you do this to me, your wife, for this bonsam? Bonsam means devil. How can you deceive me and go behind my back and basically take back our kid back to Canada in my eyes over my dead body?
My name is Yaa Owusu Nsiah, and my daughter is Evelyn Koomson.
Before then, the way on the papa no.
I had been suspicious for a while because of the close relations she had with her father. I felt like they were talking behind me. Whenever they were together, I could tell that the atmosphere had changed because of my presence. And so, one time, I got home from town and I saw packed bags. And I felt something in me say, just go to the airport and see what happens. And that was how I found out. It was just a mother's instinct.
She walked over to our car, and then I remember being in front of the airport and everyone looking at us like, what's going on? Like, what's happening right here?
I created a huge scene. Oh my God, I followed them all over the place, even to the KLM office.
I was thinking to myself, why is she trying to stop me? At that very moment, I'm like, okay, should I just walk behind her and go?
I was literally that persistent for 3 hours, saying no.
But then I realized that she took my luggage.
She's not gonna get on the plane.
No way.
It was clear who was going to win this showdown. Evelyn and her dad took that walk of shame back to the car.
I remember the car ride home, my mom just talking throughout and my dad just being silent and not having anything to say. And I just was in my emotions, yelling my thoughts in my head like, how did she do this?
Over the Christmas break, her parents' plans for her started to unfold. They were going to enroll her in a boarding school in Ghana and leave her there, while they returned to Canada.
Third day or fourth day, my uncle and a bunch of masculine men came to drag me out because I said I wouldn't go to boarding school, and they packed me in my parents' car. On the drive, I remember people were like, what is going on? Like, why is she chained up? My uncle was driving the car. He's like, oh, don't mind her. She doesn't want to go to school. Everybody be like, yes, take her. We got to the school. I remember the 4 masculine men took me out of the car and they dropped me on the floor. And then all of a sudden, the school secretary came out and said, what are you guys doing? What's going on? They're like, oh, she doesn't want to come to school. He's like, if someone doesn't want to come to school, you don't drag the person to school. Let me take you to the director. Whilst we were walking to the director's office, I was telling myself, I'm like, this is going to be an opportunity for me to tell the director, to tell my parents, to take me back without a fight. The director of the school gracefully welcomed me as a queen. He's like, how are you? Ohima. Ohima means queen. Things were falling off of my hair because he's like, what happened? I told my story that I came from Canada and this is my second time being in Ghana. I was deceived and now I don't want to go to this school. Then he asked me where my parents are from. I told him who I was. And he's like, maybe I need to investigate who your parents are. The director of the school invited my parents to the school the next day. He gave me a nice place to stay. And then when my parents came the next day, he asked my mom specifically who she is. My mom started to explain where she's from. The director is like, wait, then you're my sister. That means Evelyn is my niece. And then I realized that the director of the school was my uncle. So it's my great grandmother's sister's son, basically.
In case you weren't tracking that either, the point is Evelyn's mom and the school director were related. It took a moment for everyone to wrap their minds around that family tree revelation. Once they did, the school director offered Evelyn something she was almost totally unfamiliar with. A choice.
My uncle wanted me to stay with him for some time to see if I liked it or not. He gave me an option. You can stay with me, see how it goes, and if you don't like it, then we could always take you back. I knew in my head, I'm like, Canada, it would be great, but then I didn't want to deal with my parents.
After a hunger strike, a crushing defeat at the airport, and literally getting dragged to school, Evelyn sat in that office that day and thought about what to do. Surprisingly, she felt calm.
The decision just flowed.
Although she had found herself in the same situation again, tricked by her parents, back in Ghana, and on her way to school, this wasn't deja vu.
It was more gentle, it was more genuine, and I was at peace, and it was more like I will not be treated the way I was when I first came to Ghana. It was meant for me to be there.
She could call him an uncle. She could live at his place and hang out with his children. She started sobering up and listening to his advice as well. And he was very supportive, calming her down and telling her, this is for your own good. And that started to, make things get better between myself and her.
I just kind of knew I'll flourish where I was because there was a lot of resources that were going to keep me happy and keep me, away from that struggling period in my life.
I'm just thankful to God for how everything ended.
The way I see it coming, I good.
They were doing everything to protect me from any outcome that will cause them distress or cause them to lose me. So I think me going to Ghana in a tender way made me come back in a great way as a queen. When I graduated from school, my mom's like, I think now you're okay.
A parent cannot parent by themselves. Like, you raise your child, but so does the environment they are in. And there is only so much you can do about that. That's real. I was just with my nephews and nieces, and the things coming out their mouths was just... I just didn't recognize that this version of a child. They were singing a song, a rhyme about Jeff Bezos. Everything is gonna be all right, Jeff Bezos. I don't remember the words. I just remember, I don't know why these kids know Jeff Bezos and why they're singing about him. That's crazy. No, but I was just saying, that's wild. And so if my child started singing about Jeff Bezos, I might take them home. I might take them to Kenya. I might just do that. Thank you to Evelyn Koomson and her mother, Yaa Owusu Nsiah, for bringing this tale to us. Evelyn is now an actress, host, model, and vlogger who splits her time between Ghana and Canada. To find her latest videos and projects, please check out the show notes. Thanks for listening. It's been good to have you. I enjoyed going with you to the airport. Destination Stockholm. We ordered our complimentary drinks, took a nap, and awoke as we landed among the palm trees of Accra. Damn, they got us again. We'll see you the next time you mind your own. Until then, here's a song from the continent. Rolling Loud by Somadina. Mind Your Own is hosted and produced by me, Lupita Nyong'o. This is a production of Snap Studios at KQED, with sales and distribution by Lemonada Media. The executive producers are Glynn Washington and Mark Ristich. Our managing editor is Regina Bediaco. Our director of production is Marissa Dodge. Original music in my story, Up in the Air, was by Lauryn Newson. The story, Who's Bad, was produced by Jessica Kariisa. Translation by Oral Ofori. Voiceover by Akua Edusei Al-Hassan. Original music by Lalin and Juste. Our Mind Your Own producers are David Exame and Priscilla Alabi. Our story scouts are Ashley Okwosa, Fiona Nyong'o, Jessica Kariisa, and Lesedi Olukomoche. Our editors are Nancy Lopez and Anna Sussman. Our story consultant is John Facile. Engineering by Miles Lassie. Our music supervisor is Sandra Lawson-Ndu, also known as Sandu-Ndu. She also created the Mind Your Own theme song with Peachcurls, featuring vocals from Ehiorobo. Graphic design by Jemima Eke. Original artwork by Mateusz Sitole. Special thanks to Alan Coy, Jake Kleinberg, Samara Still, Sarah Yu, Warner Music Group, and Afropods. Make sure to follow Mind Your Own and listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's even more to love with Lemonada Premium. Subscribers get exclusive access to bonus content from across the network for only $4.99 a month. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts. Now, go out, get together, and mind your own limits.
This message is brought to you by the Cologuard test. The American Cancer Society recommends that if you are at average risk, you should begin screening for colon cancer at age 45, no matter your race, ethnicity, or gender. And with the Cologuard test, you can actually screen for colon cancer in the privacy of your own home. That's right, no prep, no procedure, no scheduling hassles. The Cologuard test is a non-invasive, effective, and affordable prescription use-at-home colon cancer screening test that looks for both abnormal DNA and blood in your stool. Colon cancer screening is a crucial step in early detection because many people with early-stage colon cancer have no symptoms. While a lifestyle of exercise and a healthy diet decreases the risk of colon cancer, it is a common misconception that it means you're at low or no risk. In actuality, no one is at low risk for colon cancer. Even with no family or personal history, you are still considered average risk. With most insured patients paying $0 for this easy-to-use at-home test that requires no need to take time off work for prep or procedures, what more are you waiting for? It's time to put your health first. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at cologuard.com/podcast. Do not use Cologuard if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. False positive and negative results may occur. Any positive results should be followed by a colonoscopy, not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. The Cologuard test is available by prescription only.